Alright, final talk on Kriya Yoga for 2014. As of this recording, it's September 17th, so fall is almost here. Again, my favorite time of year. So I'm going to be spending my time a little more in nature, a little more in meditation, a little more introspective. Also teaching the Kriya Yoga, the Yoga Sutras online webinar, which begins in October. We're going to be going over today the idea of being a Satya Yuga individual. And this is going to be based on Sri Yukteswar's theory of the yugas, or the ages that we go through. So the Dark Ages, the Bronze Age, the Silver Age, the Golden Age, which represents the ages of enlightenment, when man is closest to enlightenment, humanity is closest to enlightenment. And how to live as that type of being. And this is an important idea because our consciousness is affected by our movement through the galaxy and the solar system. I'm an astrologer, so I'm very aware that astral bodies, stellar bodies, impact our consciousness on this planet. And some of it's very subtle. For example, the Dark Ages, which ended, say, 300 to 400 years ago. We'll say 300. There's some debate on this. 300 years ago. Well, that was when humanity was at its lowest point in development. Meaning all it could really see and understand was power, basic needs, focus on the physical body, overall. Now, we can have other types of people throughout different ages. It's just that during the Iron Age, during the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga, overall man's consciousness, human's consciousness, can't quite perceive the subtleties of the world. And it was 300 years ago or so when we finally moved into the Dwapara Yuga, or the Bronze Age, the second age in the cycle. Sri Yukteswar also calls it the Electric Age. And it was during this time that we started to have all of these breakthroughs in science. Understanding the subtle world, even gravity, electricity. And now we're on to quantum mechanics and string theory. And even in the last 20 or 30 years, we've gone from computers that probably are the size of my entire condominium building to something that will fit in the palm of your hand, the phones that we have. It's even more powerful than that. So we see is that as these ages go by, the consciousness of humanity understands things better. And right now, what's it understanding? Electricity. It's starting to understand the subtle world, the quantum world. And we're only 300 years in to a 2,400-year period, which means we're just at the beginning. So even with this earlier age of increased knowing, we're making leaps and bounds. Now, sure, there's still war on the world, there's still disease, there's still famine, there's still problems, but I think that if you do some research historically on the length of life of humans, the quality of their life, the things they were doing, the kind of work that they did during the Kali Yuga, the Dark Age, the Iron Age, which was essentially subtract 300 years and then subtract another 2,400 years. So that would have been around 2,500 BC until about 300 years ago, roughly. Well, you would probably choose to live in this era. Most people, even people who work minimum wage jobs, even people who work less than a minimum wage jobs, they still have freedoms. They still have more resources than the mass consciousness of individuals in the Dark Ages. So there's more potential. Now again, we're not saying that it's perfect, because it's far from perfect. We're a good 7,000, 9,000 years before we get deeply into the Age of Enlightenment. So we've got a long ways to go. But the good news is that we're slowly moving into this cycle where we're understanding more and we're growing. So we're on the upswing of a positive growth period for humanity. Now, the Satya Yuga. There are the ages of the Iron Age, which we've just left. There's the Electrical Age, which we're in now. We're just beginning it. The next age, which will occur in about 2,000 years, that begins the Silver Age, or the Treta Yuga, which that's when man, humanity, and I apologize if I keep saying man, I'm including men and women here, so I'll switch to humanity. Humanity now understands things like the subtle aspects of healing. So all these things that scant populations know about the energetics of prana, telepathy, communicating information using the nervous system as an antenna, that will be more commonplace. So instead of having a phone, we'll be able to do it ourselves. You'll get T-mail, telepathic mail. But that's during the Silver Age. And during the Silver Age, we're halfway to the Age of Enlightenment, which means that wars are going to be significantly less, if they're at all. Think of Star Trek. If you watch Star Trek, you know that they've developed a society that war within humans is essentially extinct, and they don't work for money. They work to better themselves, to explore things, because everyone's taken care of in this regard. So the Silver Age is going to represent that. And there's going to be an increase in spirituality, understanding spiritual processes, metaphysical processes. So even just being a Silver Age individual, you can do that now. It's rare, but there are more than, say, there were in the Dark Ages. Now, when we get to the Satya Yuga, and if you want, you can Google Yuga theory, Y-U-G-A theory, and Wikipedia, it'll bring up an overview of Sri Yukteswar's thoughts on this in regards to the holy science. You can see what I'm talking about. When we get to the Golden Age, which is about, let's see, 2,000, 5,600, we'll say about 6,000 to 7,000 years from now, the Golden Age, that's when humanity's consciousness is as close to linked up to pure, infinite, divine light, divine being, divine love as possible. So there will still be Iron Age people. They'll be very rare. So just like in the Iron Age there was very rare enlightened people, well, in the Satya Yuga, in the Age of Enlightenment, there will still be people who are Iron Age or dark-minded people, but they will be as rare as the enlightened people are, say, now. So it's kind of a good thing. But they'll still be there. So you can be a type of being in any of these periods. It's up to you to decide. Now, how do you decide? Well, yoga practice, Kriya Yoga practice helps with this. But we have to understand what is the difference in quality between someone in the Dark Age versus someone, say, in the Silver Age or the Golden Age. Well, in the Golden Age, and the good news is the Golden Age is the longest of all the cycles. It's actually 4,000, let's see, 4,000, 8,000, 9,600 years long, if I calculated that correctly off the top of my head, which means of a 24,000 year cycle, that's how long it takes for us to go from the Iron Age, the Dark Age, to the Golden Age and back again. Of the 24,000 year cycle, the largest portion is spent in the Golden Age. So that's a good thing. But what is the difference between someone with a Golden Age mentality, a Truth Age mentality, and Kali Yuga mentality, or Dwapara Yuga mentality? Well, Dwapara Yuga or Kali Yuga are mainly focused on their body, their mind, their resources, their money, the things, their possessions. So the more identified you are with these things, the actual more identified you are with a Kali Age or even Dwapara Yuga mentality. As you get to the Golden Age, individuals are more perfectly attuned to God, to divine consciousness, to that light and love of perfection. And really, the idea of light and love and perfection, it's not this ooey gooey New Age thing. It's just knowing what you are. So things that are of darkness, things that represent darkness, it's not that they're evil, it's not that they're bad. It seems that way because they usually do dumb things or hurtful things, but it's because they have forgotten the truth of their nature. So remember that. Kali Age, it's when we've forgotten mostly the truth of our nature. So how do we get to the Satya Yuga mentality? We undertake the practices that help remind us, truthfully give us the experience of what we are. And then you can be a Satya Yuga Age individual in any age. And the thing is, if you abide by the theory of reincarnation, if now you're incarnating as a Dwapara Yuga individual, it's because you have the attachments of a Dwapara Yuga individual. If you go through the practices of Kriya Yoga, of self-inquiry, to figure out what you are and you can exist there and be there, knowing that you have a body and that you exist in the material world, but you're fully identified with God, divine consciousness, that remembrance of what you are, then when you reincarnate again, more than likely you will reincarnate in the Satya Yuga because you've realized what you are, and you only incarnate in periods of time that are conducive to what you identify with. So again, this is why the idea of Kriya Yoga or a spiritual practice, changing the world, making the world a better place. Well, the world's going to get to be a better place as time goes on based on these cycles, these astrological cycles. So that's going to happen anyway. So we aren't actually making the world a better place. But if you want to experience a better world, you need to change what you're identified with within you, and then you will attract to yourself, you will resonate more with Satya Yuga individuals, Silver Age individuals. They will be more prolific around you. And you'll notice that. The things you think about, the things you identify with, that's who you seem to hang around. Which means when you die, if you've gotten to the point to where you're fully identified with God and you want to reincarnate again, more than likely you'll incarnate in that Satya Yuga, that golden age. But you have to get there first. Otherwise, when you reincarnate, you'll just reincarnate or re-manifest in relationship to that level of consciousness, which you know to be true. So remember, Kali Yuga, mainly focused on the body, on survival, on keeping the tribe alive. So it's a very dense kind of consciousness. Dwapara Yuga, we're starting to explore our possibilities, all the amazing things that can be done. So it's kind of more of a Rajasic time, I think. Self-improvement, exploring the fun things in the world. Treta Yuga, more than likely it'll be focused on experiencing the peace and joy of being. Helping others if you want to help others. Being creative. Creating masterpieces, not for the sake of gain or for profit, but because it's inspired. You want to do it. So inspired people are more Treta Yuga age people. Satya Yuga, you're peace. You're at peace with yourself. You know what you are. You experience this manifestation as manifestation of yourself, of God, divine consciousness. You remember, you know light. So these are interesting things to consider. And I'd like to encourage you to remember this as you practice your Kriya, as you practice any spiritual practice, really. That you need to figure out how do you get to that state, and it's going to be different for all of us. If you know someone who seems to embody a particular age that you'd like to be like, ask them, how'd you do it? Don't say, what should I do? Because there's no what should you do. They can say, this is what I did, and then you have to interpret it for your own particular life. Move forward, experiment, say, hey, I'm trying this. What did you do when you got to this point? You say, oh, well, he or she will say, I did this, I did that. Then you experiment and see how it works for you. So you can get help from others, but you've got to walk the path yourself. And again, since this is the end of online presentations for 2014, I'd like to encourage you to go back through this channel, Kriya Yoga Online, the YouTube channel Kriya Yoga Online. If you need to learn the Kriya Pranayama techniques, learned at initiation, it's on there. Just search for that. If you need to get more information on how to practice Kriya, there's more videos too. When not to practice Kriya, that's on there. There's also numerous talks from when I used to speak for a particular organization, and when I was part of a meditation center, when I talked at churches, yoga centers, so you get inspiration that way. Currently, there's one book out, this one, Kriya Yoga, Continuing the Lineage of Enlightenment, which goes over the Yoga Sutras. We'll be doing a class here in October of 2014. I'll put the link of how to sign up if you want to below. And we also have a 11-hour Kriya Yoga class, downloadable class available at astrovedicastrology.com, which goes over the meditation techniques, Kriya Yoga meditation techniques, pranayama, yoni mudra, life force arousal, as well as personal stories and advice, you might say, on how to make the most of your practice, how to move forward with it in a realistic, efficient, but profound fashion. So you have a lot of resources available to you, and we'll catch up soon. So enjoy the fall if you're in the northern hemisphere. Enjoy the spring if you're in the southern hemisphere. And then enjoy the winter. Well, anyway, you get the point. Enjoy whatever season you happen to be in. But it looks like it's going to be a nice fall and a nice winter up here. So be well. Peace.